Welcome to Catholic Homeschool Radio, where we begin conversations to help parents enrich their lives and make practical decisions for the future.
Welcome to Homeschooling Radio. I'm Priscilla McCaffrey, and if you've been following me on the two previous conversations, we're talking to Lisa Kotasek, and she started Home Place Wisdom, and I hope has inspired a few people to start their own small organization, not organization, but small formation program to encourage other women in living their faith. Lisa's a very, very talented young lady. She's an attorney, and she has a specialty in mediation. And I like that she thinks that mediation is better than litigation. I'm sure a lot of lawyers would not like you to be promoting this concept, or they're trying. I'm sure a lot of them would not even like us to know that there's an option to get out of some of our litigious practices. So I'm all ears. I'm going to ask her first about some of the qualities of a mediator and how we can apply them in our house to just home events and challenges. And then I'm going to ask her about the nuts and bolts of mediation, because I think a lot of us have suffered through small suits, and we want to know what there is out there to help us along. And we also begin to fear for our children, for the little things that they can get into that can become big problems. So thanks, Lisa, again for being here. She's a mother of 5. She is a certified mediator. Are all of them certified?
In Ohio,
states?
we had to be certified. Now, I'm not sure about Connecticut and New York. I never practiced much in Connecticut. And I did most of my mediation in employment settings or in my small private practice. I worked out of my home for 18 months, the law offices of myself and my little negotiating in my bathroom for settlements and little things. But
I love that.
Mediators should be certified, and if you look for a mediator, you want to get someone who is certified so they understand the mediation rules.
Okay. They're not all attorneys, right?
They're not all attorneys, and I don't think you need to have an attorney as a mediator. It depending on your dispute, especially if it's a family matter, I would look to someone who you can talk to and has a good reputation as a mediator. I think mediators are... Well, obviously, mothers are mediators by trade. We have to. We have to jump in and settle disputes and listen. The biggest thing a mediator does at the beginning is earn and gain trust. Listen well. That's
once the problem has happened, but I know moms have to. They have to think defensively because they're going to end up mediating chores, cars. That was a big deal when we had 5 drivers at once.
Oh, I bet.
And so they have to mediate travel plans, school plans, arguments, and sometimes that's great. It makes us feel like the great peacemaker. Our kids come to us. We resolve problems. We're awesome. We dry tears. We make people happy. We make the family machinery work. And then we feel successful. But, of course, that doesn't always happen. So we reach an impasse, and so then we need to think about some mediation skills. So how have you applied that to your household? Have you found that have you relied on those?
Well, absolutely.
Skills?
I mean, I think often it's good to divide and conquer. Sometimes it's important to send someone to their room, have someone else go to another room, and talk to them one-on-one. And in mediation, you usually start with one party. You hear their side, you hear what they're looking for. You get back to them a day later, and you go to the other party, and you hear their side. And we all know there's your side, his side, and the truth. So we want to get we want to get to the truth while having the trust of each party. So I try not to blame or make a decision about who was at fault in a conflict in my house. I really try to enable the children to fix it, to figure it out, especially when they're older. I don't want to hear it, figure it out. But when it's a bigger thing and I do separate them, I go into the room and the first thing I'd say is, tell me what happened. Tell me about it. I don't say, I saw you and you were at fault. Clearly, you're guilty. And then I go to the other person and I say, what happened? And often, by that time, it's diffused.
Very, very true.
You know?
With kids, it can be immediate.
Just take a break. You just need space from each other. And in mediation, eventually you come back together and you have to be in the same room. And that can be difficult sadly, with the divorce situation or child custody, which is really sad. But getting people in a room, my goal in those situations is just to have people see each other as they saw them in the beginning of their relationship. So to actually see this person they did want to marry at one point, and have them have that empathy and sympathy. And
so you've had to mediate divorces or custody?
Yes, situations like that can be really, really difficult for me, especially given my beliefs. But you have to set that aside and work for the best interest of the children. In a divorce mediation, I'm thinking about the children. When the first thing we're talking about is coming together and getting along for the children. So,
well, we all know people who have gone through the courts and have gotten divorced, but the children don't seem to be the first thing that the judges are thinking of.
No.
I don't understand that. I do understand that. I mean, there was a time when almost everything went to the woman, the children, the custody. But now they're trying to establish more equality between, what the parents get. And then as a result, the children, they end up in two homes. And I had one mom said to me, no, my children only have one home.
Right.
There's one home that they call home.
Right.
But the courts are saying, no, they have two homes. And so she's the one who has to get with the times. So is it better to seek out a mediator, do you think, than to throw your bread upon the water and, into the judicial system or the court system?
I mean, I would go to a mediator, someone who is hopefully like-minded to you. They're out there. Find them.
How do you find them?
Well, usually word of mouth. And, you can ask your attorney for someone if your attorney's like-minded with you. We have a Catholic attorney.
Okay.
So I would ask my attorney if I needed a mediator. But you can interview mediators and ask them. You don't have to be politically correct when you're interviewing someone.
Do you? Okay, that's a good point.
You can
don't be defensive. Just cut to the chase and say, do you think?
Are you going to honor my Catholic beliefs, or are you going to honor my desire? And hopefully none of us will be in the divorce situation. But even if it's a dispute because one child bit another child, and this mother down the road is suing you for damages, who knows?
Is that happening?
The fights that happen in the schoolyard can result in litigation, which is insane. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to become a mediator.
Oh my gosh.
Was to just reduce the litigious nature.
I think I would be a very bad mediator. I mean, I would end up saying, "What, are you nuts? Yeah. Kids do this kind of thing."
And that's what's difficult, the objective third party. And so going into your children's disputes, at times you want to look at your children and say, are you kidding me? And at times you do, really, you did that again, or whatever. I just
Which
told
isn't
you
always
yesterday.
the best thing to, yeah.
So I often try to look forward to a future conversation when I'm having these little mediations with the kids.
With the kids, yeah.
I think, okay, now you're 10, but when you're 15, this is really going to matter. Mm-hmm. Somebody installing Snapchat on one of the family phones is not acceptable. Mm-hmm. But when you're 15 years old, in 5 years, I want this conversation to be a constant conversation so that you can trust me. I can trust you. So you understand.
And they know they'll be accountable in some ways. They have to be able to explain a few things, which is torment. They'd rather just not have to defend themselves, just give it up. Right. And that's okay too. That can be a victory too, if they just say,
totally.
Okay, I don't need it, instead of trying to explain why they should have it.
Yeah.
That happens.
But most mediation can be prevented. I mean, mediation is just another form of conflict management. And I believe I kind of live life with a conflict prevention standpoint. I don't like conflict. I don't like dispute in general. That's why I was a pretty bad lawyer, thankfully. So I try to avoid conflict. So I'm often thinking of how to prepare and plan for my children to not be throwing a tantrum at 5:00 in the grocery store. Or if I have to go, giving them snacks while we're there, not being the mom who says, no, you're not going to eat in the grocery store at mealtime. I try to think, have they rested? Have they exercised? Have they eaten? Have they had fresh air?
Children act like children. And I mean, you can't tell a 2-year-old not to throw 2-year-olds throw tantrums. So what I would do is make sure that I wasn't in the wrong place at the wrong time when they were about to throw tantrum. You mentioned sleep. That's medicine to me.
Yes.
And I am always reminding my older children, I could manage, a mom has to manage their sleep hours. And I think that's really important. That's what I did. But when they get older and they're making more choices about their time, and then if they felt a little sick, I'd say go to bed.
Go to bed is the answer to most marital disputes. Go take a nap, honey. Yeah. Lisa, you really are having a rough afternoon. Go take a nap. My husband will just put me to bed, and I have a great night after just a quick nap. Yeah, because I'm human and I get tired too. Yeah, and it affects us more than it affects some people more than others. Well, my husband and I have been working on losing weight, and over the years he was a disabled veteran and couldn't exercise like he did when he was at West Point and an Army Ranger. And when we took our sabbatical, just by going to bed at 9:00 every night for 1 month and changing nothing else, he lost 20 pounds. 20 pounds. That's fantastic. By going to sleep. To just prove that sleep is necessary for our health and for our children. As they get older, they think they need to sleep less, but they in fact need more sleep. There is a big problem also with the screen because that stimulates, whatever in your brain, the pineal gland or something. And for a lot of people, it makes it that much more difficult to get to sleep. Also, a lot of kids are kind of drifting off. They're ready to go to bed at 11:30. They've done their homework, but downtime, they're going to check into Facebook before they know it. They're an hour more into Facebook, having gained nothing. I mean, really, would you invite your friends? Less hour of sleep at 11:30 at night? Would you invite your friends from high school back into your room, in your bedroom? I always say to my family, those people aren't invited here right now. This is our home. Yeah. Why do you want to know what they're up to at this hour? Yeah, that really has to be monitored. I realize that. I know a lot of people are onto that, but kids shouldn't have screens in their rooms either. No. It's so dangerous. But just not being able to rest your mind, aside from all the other dangers of the screens, alone, unsupervised. And I'm a big believer in, parents' rights and children's lack of privacy. So I believe from a young age, children should know that these are your screens. They're your phones. They're your iPads, your computer. They're not their children's. So you will be monitoring everything. Of course. For their whole life. To protect Actually, there comes a point when you say, I don't want to monitor you. I have no interest in controlling you. Please just grow up, control yourself. Their whole childhood anyway. Not their whole life. But that's a good one. I think parents have to start off with that, with the screens. So back to mediation. Yeah, there's so many different types of mediation. And I was an employment lawyer, and like at the different universities, they would call me in to mediate a dispute between a vice president and an employee. So instead of having it be a discrimination lawsuit because of X, Y, or Z comment or decisions, we would mediate and try to talk through a good remedy instead of a huge lawsuit that would last for 5 years. Now, I would think that an employer would
say, well, she's been hired by the administration. I'm fighting the administration. She's part of the administration.
Right.
I'm not going to get a fair deal here.
Right.
What is his, what motivation does he have to go through the mediator? Because I presume if he's suing the vice president, then it's the vice president's idea to say, let's first go through mediation.
Sure.
Okay.
And the impartial side of the mediation could be skewed. And usually it's before the lawsuit has happened. It's usually an early attempt to help these people come back together and figure out where we went wrong in the relationship or in the office culture in that department. But once there's a lawsuit, usually will not be mediation. I wouldn't be hired by the university and mediate after the lawsuit's been filed, sadly.
So the administration has to be on its toes to know that something is in the air, one more thing will precipitate a lawsuit.
Right.
So...
And we were proactive in that.
Yeah.
After I'd been at a university in Ohio, when I got to New York City, I advertised my mediation skills in my interview. So I added that to the job. I was the legal compliance trainer and manager for all the training on the campus with the information services and human resources. And I added that as a component because I saw litigation in other places. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to help be proactive, but the employees saw me as a friend.
Oh, they did?
From the start.
Well, how did that happen?
Well,
I mean, I look at you, I'd be your friend, even if you were sitting there on the street corner with your luggage, just fresh out of the Midwest.
Seriously.
I'd say, this looks like a nice lady.
I think because I did new employee orientation and I probably went a little too far in helping these people be comfortable in their jobs and answering their emails after hours and like trying to really connect with them and build community again, like Home Place Wisdom.
That's fantastic.
but
that's
it was a unique job.
It
for
is,
me.
but also I think it fits you as a woman. I'm sure a man has certain skill sets too, but just kind of that nurturing thing had to.
Well, and these kids
diffuse
were
a lot of problems.
Some of them were coming from India and the information services, and it was their first time in the U.S., and I just couldn't help myself but to say, well, this is where you can do your laundry, and here's where you can eat dinner. And I guess I just was a mother. Before I was a mother.
Unfortunately, it hits you.
Yeah, I had that desire. But being a certified mediator was just one little area of my life. And I think in motherhood, just having the skills of preparation and planning and knowing what you'll do. So I do a lot of hypotheticals with my kids and they think I'm probably nuts. But at dinner, we play these games.
Okay.
Where we play what not to do at dinner.
You mean so that you can take them to a restaurant and not be embarrassed?
Right. Or have you and your husband over for dinner and maybe they'll see.
I noticed they weren't there at the table.
I know. I shifted them right upstairs with the sitter. So, they'll practice putting their elbows on the table and they raise their hand and say, oh, she's putting her elbows on the table or she's making bubbles with her water or whatever. Mm-hmm. Or I do hypotheticals for what will happen when they're with their friends, like the little pepperonis on the pizza. I say, well, this is your friend and this is you and this is the teacher.
The pepperoni.
Yeah.
Okay.
So your friend just took the toy from you and you want to hit your friend and your teacher says stop, and we do this. We just constantly role play
and teach.
We role play. What do you do when the stranger comes up to you at the playground and says, I can't find my dog. Can you help me find my dog? And so they practice saying, no, stranger. Adults will never ask your children for help. I always tell them different little things to remember like that. Or we have a code word for danger. If we're in a parking lot and I need them to get in the car quickly, I say guacamole and they get in the car quickly and we go.
Now, is that your training or your husband's training as a ranger? There's a lot going on in that household.
It's an interesting house. We have a lot of fun.
It's kind of intense.
It probably sounds more intense. We have a lot of fun. We really just like hanging out together. Mm-hmm. We had a staycation the past 2 weeks and It was a lot of just playing, swimming, reading.
Was your husband able to disconnect with work?
He had about half the time off.
Okay.
So he worked about 8 hours a day, and then
okay.
and then
That's
enjoyed
half the time off.
No, but he's a great dad. He's taught all the kids how to swim. He reads aloud to them at night or in the weekends.
Are you going to let him jump out of airplanes with them with a parachute?
I thought about the other day. My 5-year-old boy will definitely be ready to jump out of an airplane.
I could tell with or without a parachute. He's ready to roll.
I found him going across the railing of the stairs the other day, all the way on the outside. Where the
balancing?
I know what you mean. The second story rail. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He was on the outside of the rail.
That's one way to go up the stairs.
So my hypotheticals are not always working.
Yeah, you're going to have a few surprises ahead of you. I know. The best laid plans. I know you've got it all worked.
I know.
I know you're ready. You're ready for that. Okay.
The kids are raising a mother.
That's true. I had my husband and I were involved in a minor lawsuit. It was really a pain. It seemed to me very unjust. We sold a house and somebody said there was a drainage problem. Well, it is Florida. You have hurricanes there. Things get wet. And he wanted us to take care of the drainage. And we were up here. He was down there. He was a lawyer. So it's no big deal for him to set up a little lawsuit. And we really didn't know what was ahead of us, but we were asked if we wanted to have mediation. And we said, well, yeah, sure. This was done over the phone, he down there, we up here. And it was so lame, and it bothered me because basically he presented his view, we presented our view, and the mediator said, well, it doesn't look like you're going to agree on this. And that was their job. And I thought, wow. What? And I had heard that some mediators volunteer. Is that, I don't know enough about Florida to say that's the case.
Sure either
but
about Florida
I think
rules.
From now on, I like the idea of mediation. I think it's a good thing. I wouldn't know how to find one, and I would also have to find out the laws in Connecticut if somebody just went to mediator school online.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a really simple several day certification, and really, I don't want to disparage this mediator, but I would hope someone would take a little more time than that. Sometimes it has to last longer. Maybe it takes several weeks where you try different tricks, you try different techniques to get people to come to some sort of resolution.
Oh, okay.
You don't usually come to the conclusion so quickly.
And have 20 minutes on the phone.
No.
That's what we're told. You'll have 20 minutes.
No, that's not mediation, as I understand it.
Right.
I mean,
okay.
I've mediated a sexual harassment dispute, and it took 4 weeks.
Oh.
And we worked and hours and hours of conversation, and sometimes bringing in other people and having them talk and talk through what happened, and coming together and then separating, having meetings separately. So I'm sorry you had that experience. It's not what I would expect from a mediator.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry you had a lawsuit.
Yeah, it was a bummer, but it was not like other friends I know. I have another friend whose husband invested a huge amount of money in a particular tool for his work, and it didn't do what it's supposed to do. And so they had to go through a lawsuit. But again, it was in 2 different states. So I suppose mediation is good when it's a case right there, and so you can talk to the mediation, you need to talk to the people,
right,
and not just have phone conversations.
Phone mediation is really difficult. I tried to mediate an employment dispute over the phone, and I resigned from the case because people weren't meeting in person, and I said, we'll get nowhere with this, so you'll need to hire someone else.
Someone on site? Did you recommend, or
actually,
could that happen?
It was a local matter, but the people were having such trouble that they didn't even want to be in the same room. So we were doing it all on these conference calls, which I felt were wasteful.
No, in Scripture, doesn't it say, what is that passage where you're not to bring your...
Now you're going to test me.
Oh, you must know it. I should have looked this up. You settle your matters together, and you do not bring them to court.
Right.
And
that's how I was raised, in a biblical Protestant family, that you don't
you
litigate.
Should know that.
I know. I've read the Bible.
What I'm talking about. It's not.
We were taught that lawsuits are not Christian. That we're not supposed to argue with our neighbor and bring unnecessary lawsuits. Mm-hmm. And lawyers should be held to account too with all these unnecessary lawsuits. You're supposed to be fined heavily when you bring a frivolous lawsuit, and I just don't see it anymore. Now. I don't see it. So I'm discouraged with the legal world, and
that's why what in place of mediation instead of litigation? That's a great slogan. Why don't you run for something?
That would be a lot of fun. I think there's many men in our parish and women who should run for something. And Father Audette's always saying we need to stop complaining about the local politics and national politics and get out there and run. We just keep having babies.
He's right. He's right. My sister had 8 kids, and then she ran for mayor of the town I grew up in. And it was hotly contested the first time around. And then she ran unopposed the second time. She runs it like a mom.
And what better way to run?
She has, and people really like her. She takes care. She loves her community. She loves the folks in it. And I'm going to tell you this little story that doesn't have much to do with mediation, but it's such a beautiful story of redemption. She went to the parochial school in the town. We all did. And so when she was mayor, the head of the town dump, I call him the archivist of the town dump, came to her and said, "Felicity, I got to show you something." So he took the mayor down to a place, a shed, and he said, "Look at that." And it was the communion rail of our parish church. He said, "Felicity, I just couldn't throw that out. It's been there at least 25 years. Oh. I couldn't throw it out. We made our first communion there." And so, she felt sad about it. He felt sad about it. They didn't know what to do. Well, time passes. The parish gets a new pastor. He's young. He's the oldest of 14 kids. He finds out that the old communion rail, which was a beautifully wrought iron communion rail that placed in a church, built in the church with the pennies of Germans who came in the late 19th century. They built a beautiful church, and the communion rail was perfect. Well, this new pastor wants to resurrect the communion rail and have it installed, and it's been at least 35 years.
That's amazing.
And I think it's going to happen. He said he found someone who would pay for it, and God bless him.
It's fantastic. I would just say that if you're in a legal dispute, I would try to maintain the Christian principles and try to talk to the person in person, work it out, pray for your enemies. That's lawsuit,
so good,
and get away from the court. Just really have everyone on their knees in prayer for this dispute, because the more we sue, the more we are apart, and we need to come together.
Yeah, and we have a mediator.
Well,
in heaven.
If you need anything, I charge very little. I volunteer for everything that I do.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. That's great. Thanks for
really. This was really exciting, Priscilla. I can't wait to hear the rest of the podcast.
Oh, well,
and continue on these conversations. I think homeschooling it's a right that we need to protect.
Right.
Parents' rights are tantamount in what I'm doing in private writing, and we should continue to support homeschoolers all around us.
Thank you. We look for your support, Lisa. We need you. Thank you.
Thank you.